Lawmakers are asking a lot of questions on Capitol Hill today, and some of those center around the release of the Epstein files. And I want to tell you where we stand with this situation, because lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have had questions about how the Department of Justice has released the Epstein files. An administration official actually testified on Capitol Hill about why he's mentioned in these documents, and that would be Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. He defended himself in a Senate hearing yesterday, where he downplayed his ties to Jeffrey Epstein after a revelation showed there in the files that he had had at least 2 meetings with him after Epstein's 2008 conviction on prostitution charges.
Today on Capitol Hill, lawmakers are really digging into the Epstein files. There's been a lot of buzz around how the Department of Justice handled the release of these documents.
I had another couple they were there as well with their children, and we had lunch on the island.
My wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick actually testified yesterday to clarify his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. He downplayed those ties despite the files showing he had at least 2 meetings with Epstein after his 2008 conviction related to prostitution charges. Lutnick admitted they had lunch on Epstein's island for about an hour, but his testimony came right after Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, chose to plead the Fifth.
As I testify before the committee today, I want to be clear. I stand by my decisions as special counsel, including the decision to bring charges against President Trump. Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity.
Now, switching gears a bit, Jack Smith just provided Congress with everything needed to potentially impeach Trump. He released his final report and testified under oath, stating he has strong evidence that could convict Trump for election interference and obstruction. The president's been indicted twice, and during a recent discussion, things got a bit heated. There was a moment when someone requested to stop the clock so they could get more time to speak. It's crucial for the witnesses to answer questions fully, even if the responses aren't what the lawmakers want to hear.
If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican. No one should be above the law in this country, and the law required that he be held to account, so that is what I did.
The main takeaway is that the witness, Smith, didn't actually say the word impeach during his testimony, but he sure implied it. He laid out all the evidence, talked about the alleged crimes, and made it clear that no one should be above the law. Since the Department of Justice can't prosecute a sitting president, he basically indicated that it's Congress's job to take action. That's pretty much as direct as you can get about wanting impeachment without using the actual word. And guess what? The Democrats are already picking up Smith's report as the basis for renewed impeachment efforts. They are pointing out that Smith spent years investigating Trump, found solid evidence of wrongdoing, and the only reason Trump isn't facing charges is that he's the president. So they believe Congress has a responsibility to step in and hold him accountable. Now, this has Trump really worried, because Smith's report isn't just some political jab. It's an official document from the DOJ written by a respected prosecutor. It meticulously details all the crimes Trump is accused of committing, and now it's public record. Congress can use this as a roadmap for impeachment. Volume 1 of Smith's report dives into the interference in the 2020 election, and it paints a grim picture. He noted that voters essentially rescued Trump from a conviction by electing him again before any jury could take a look at the cases. Just think about that. Voters saved him not because he's innocent or the evidence isn't strong, but because he won the election and regained that presidential immunity just in time.
Our investigation revealed that Donald Trump was not looking for honest answers about whether there was fraud in the election. He was looking for ways to stay in power. And when people told him things that conflicted with him staying in power, he rejected them, or he chose not even to contact people like that who would know if the election was done properly in the state.
Smith also mentioned he had solid evidence against Trump, beyond a reasonable doubt. So, listen to this. There's this ongoing situation where a bunch of folks got involved in a plot to overturn the 2020 election and block the handover of power. Now, the big deal here is that the legal standard for convicting someone is beyond a reasonable doubt. Prosecutor Jack Smith actually thought he could have gone to court and possibly gotten a guilty verdict against Trump. But here's the kicker. Trump ended up becoming president again before that could happen. Fast forward to January when Smith spoke to Congress and was pretty direct. He said Trump engaged in criminal behavior and even indicated that Trump instigated the January 6th chaos, aiming to take advantage of the violence. Smith made it clear that the law demands someone be held accountable for that. His statement was pretty striking as he essentially told Congress, "I did my part. I unearthed the evidence. Now it's your turn to act." Several members of Congress responded by asserting that if the Department of Justice couldn't pursue prosecution, then impeachment was their duty as laid out in the Constitution. They wanted to take the evidence Smith compiled and use it to hold Trump accountable. And they're not just chatting about it. There are already impeachment resolutions filed. One of them, known as H.R. 353 from last year, includes 7 articles of impeachment against Trump. Now that Smith's inquiry backs up these resolutions, the Democrats don't have to start from scratch to prove wrongdoing. Smith has already laid the groundwork. They just need to present what he found and argue that it justifies impeachment. So here's the tricky spot for Trump. He thought that winning the election would wipe away all his legal troubles, and it did in a way. The criminal cases got tossed out, and he's not facing trials at the moment. However, the evidence against him is still very much alive. Smith's report is public and his congressional testimony is on record. Congress can utilize all of that for impeachment. Essentially, Trump swapped a chance at criminal prosecution for the threat of impeachment. And with the midterms in 2026 on the horizon, if the Democrats gain control of the House, he could find himself in hot water again. The truth is, Smith's evidence isn't going anywhere. It's all documented, detailed, and validated by the DOJ. It encompasses everything from the fake elector plan to the January 6th incident, as well as Trump's pressures on state officials to change results. It's a complete case file that Congress can easily pick up and use against him. Trump is aware of this, and that's why he's been pushing Republicans to win the midterms, warning them that if they don't, he might face impeachment. He's not even trying to act like it's not about him. He's outright telling Republicans, your main job is to back me up. You know, it's pretty wild that the president is basically saying, if I don't win the midterms, I'm in trouble. It's like he's admitting that the only thing keeping him from being impeached is Congress flipping in his favor. And honestly, he's probably spot on about that. Jack Smith, the special counsel, laid everything bare. The Democrats don't need to guess or build shaky arguments. They have a credible source under oath saying that Trump was involved in criminal activities. Plus, there's a detailed report to back it up and a way in the Constitution to hold him responsible. So right now, Trump's whole game plan is to keep the Republicans in charge. As long as they dominate the House, impeachment is off the table since they're not likely to go after their own president based on a special counsel report. They'll brush it aside as just politics. They'll defend Trump no matter what evidence floats up. But if the Democrats take over, things could change. They might dive into Smith's findings, set up hearings, and lay out the facts for everyone, arguing that Trump should be held accountable for his actions. Now, let's break down what Jack Smith discovered and why it matters so much. His investigation looked into 2 key areas: Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election and how he handled classified documents. Both areas uncovered clear evidence of wrongdoing, but everything got sidelined when Trump won the presidency again. Let's focus first on the election interference part, because that's what the first volume of Smith's report is all about. And let me tell you, it's pretty damning. It's hundreds of pages detailing exactly how Trump tried to flip the 2020 election results. We're talking about the fake elector scheme where his team put together bogus electors in several states to submit fraudulent electoral votes, pressuring state officials like Georgia's Secretary of State to find votes, and even the plan for Mike Pence to refuse to certify the election results. Smith's conclusion: he found solid evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump was involved in a criminal conspiracy to overturn the election and block the transfer of power. That, beyond a reasonable doubt, is a big deal. It's the highest standard of proof in criminal law. It means Smith believed he could convince a jury of Trump's guilt, and he could have secured a conviction. So, here's the deal. The case never actually went to trial. While the prosecutors were trying to push forward, Trump was busy running for president again, and he actually won. This led to complications because the Department of Justice has a rule that you can't prosecute a sitting president. So, the charges had to be thrown out. In Smith's final report, he even noted that it was the voters who saved Trump from being convicted by electing him back into office before the case was resolved. Just think about that for a second. Trump isn't out there free because he's innocent. He's free because he won an election. His legal argument was basically just make me president again so I can dodge prosecution. And it seems to have worked. That's a wild place for us to be as a country where supposedly committing crimes to stay in power can be used as defense when you snag that power again. Now, let's dive into Smith's testimony before Congress because things get really spicy here. Smith was called to testify in January 2026, and the Democrats on the committee directly asked about Trump's actions. Smith didn't beat around the bush. He stated clearly that Trump engaged in criminal conduct. He said Trump incited the January 6th events with the plan of using the chaos for his own political gain. Then he made a crucial point. He told lawmakers that the law demanded accountability, not just that it would be nice if it did, but that it absolutely required it. Essentially, Smith was saying, I found evidence of crimes, and someone needs to step up since I can't prosecute him because he's president. That's on you, Congress. He didn't outright say impeach, but it was clear what he meant, and everyone in that room understood. He was giving Congress the evidence and saying, you're the only ones who can do something now. The criminal justice system is stuck due to presidential immunity. So you've got to use your constitutional power, and the main way to hold a president accountable is through impeachment. The Democrats caught his drift. Several committee members pointed out if the DOJ can't act, then it's Congress's constitutional duty to step in. They're making the case that Smith's findings create a responsibility for Congress to impeach. If Trump committed crimes trying to overturn an election and the only reason he's not being prosecuted is his presidential status, then impeachment isn't just an option, it's a must. Hey everyone, let's dive into some important stuff here about the evidence presented by Smith. The specifics really matter. So here's what we know. First off, there's the fake elector scheme. Trump's crew put together these bogus electors in 7 states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. They signed off on documents claiming they were the real electors, which they weren't. The whole idea was to stir things up and give Pence a reason to either delay or reject the actual electoral votes. Next up, we've got Trump's pressure on state officials. The most well-known instance was his call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, where he famously said, I just want to find 11,080 votes. But that wasn't an isolated incident. He pushed officials in several states to change their results or not certify Biden's win. Then there's what happened with Mike Pence. Trump spent weeks trying to persuade Pence that he could just throw out the electoral votes. When Pence said no, Trump went after him publicly and even encouraged the mob on January 6th to target him. There are tweets from Trump during the chaos saying Pence didn't have the guts to do what needed to be done. And speaking of January 6th, Smith's report outlines how Trump's speech that morning was aimed at sending a crowd to the Capitol. He knew the crowd was armed, but still told security to let them through. Trump watched the events unfold on TV and didn't bother to call it off for hours. His intention seemed to be to use the violence to pressure Congress and Pence into flipping the election results. All of this is not just hearsay. It's all laid out in Smith's report with citations, witness testimonies, and hard evidence. It's a clear and thorough account of what actually took place. Smith's conclusion, he believes this conduct amounts to a criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States and to obstruct an official proceeding. Now, for the classified documents case, that's discussed in Volume 2 of Smith's report. It's pretty straightforward in some aspects. The FBI executed a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago and uncovered boxes of classified documents. We're talking top secret documents related to military operations, nuclear capabilities, and intelligence sources. So here's the deal. There's a lot of stuff that really shouldn't have been in Trump's personal home. And honestly, the way he acted after the search just adds to the mess. He didn't cooperate, as he should have, with the investigation. There are claims that he told his aides to hide or even destroy documents. Plus, he made some false claims about what he had and what he'd returned. All of this points to potential obstruction of justice. The special counsel Smith found solid evidence suggesting that Trump committed crimes related to this mishandling and obstruction. However, when Trump became president, the case got tossed out. So we never actually saw a trial or the evidence in front of a jury. All we got was Smith's report saying something like, "I had enough to convict him, but the case went away when he won the election." Now, Congress is sitting on all this information. They have Smith's final report, which covers both investigations, his sworn testimony saying that Trump was involved in criminal activities, and a statement that says the law requires Trump to be held accountable. That's everything they need for impeachment. Here's the kicker for Trump. While criminal cases can be dismissed for procedural reasons and charges can go away if prosecutors make mistakes, Smith's report isn't going anywhere. It's public and it's permanent. Congress can pull it out whenever they feel like it. So even though Trump dodged criminal prosecution by winning, he didn't escape accountability. It just shifted from the courtroom to Congress. Instead of a jury, it's the House and Senate he's dealing with. And instead of a verdict from a jury, it could lead to impeachment and potential removal from office. This is a huge worry for Trump because he's already been impeached twice. And both times, Republicans in the Senate came to his rescue. But those impeachments were pretty quick and didn't have years of digging behind them. They lacked a detailed special counsel report. This time around, things are different. The Democrats will have Smith's entire case, every witness, document, and piece of evidence lined up. This could turn into the most thorough impeachment in American history. That's why Trump is already telling the Republicans, "You must win the midterms or I'll face impeachment." Because he realizes that if the Democrats take the House, they're going to use Smith's report to go after him. Hey everyone, it seems like we've got some pretty big developments in the situation surrounding Trump. So let's break this down. First off, the evidence is strong enough that even some Republicans are having a hard time defending him. Now let's chat about the Supreme Court's role, as it's pretty crucial here. You see, Trump's criminal cases faced some delays because the Supreme Court had to decide on presidential immunity. They took their sweet time listening to arguments, but eventually ruled that presidents enjoy broad immunity for their official actions. These delays ended up helping Trump because by the time things were ready to go to trial, he had already won the election. So in a way, the Supreme Court kind of shielded him from legal trouble. But here's the kicker. Their ruling also means that Congress is now the one left holding the bag for accountability, since they said you can't prosecute a sitting president, and that means someone has to step up and hold the president accountable for any crimes, which, according to the Constitution, is Congress's job through impeachment. Now let's focus on what's really important. Jack Smith found evidence that he believes proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump committed crimes, particularly around trying to overturn the 2020 election and mishandling classified documents. This beyond a reasonable doubt standard means he thinks he could convince a jury of Trump's guilt. What's wild is Trump only dodged prosecution because he won the election and found himself back in the presidential seat. There's a policy from the DOJ that says sitting presidents can't be prosecuted, so Smith had no choice but to drop the charges. Trump's defense, it was like, make me president, and I can't be prosecuted. And guess what? It worked. He's not free because he's innocent. He's free thanks to that presidential immunity. On top of that, Smith's final report and his testimony to Congress basically gave them a roadmap for impeachment. While he didn't use the term impeach directly, he made it clear that Trump engaged in criminal activities, and the law says he should be held accountable. Since the DOJ can't do anything, Congress is the only venue left, and their tool for accountability is impeachment. And get this, Democrats are already jumping on Smith's findings to push for impeachment. They've got existing resolutions filed, and Smith's report really adds some weight to those efforts. If Democrats manage to take the House in 2026, they'll be in a strong position to act on this. Let's break this down. So, we've got a serious situation with Trump, and the Democrats are looking at all the evidence collected by Smith's investigation as their starting point for impeachment. Over the years, Smith dug deep into Trump's actions. He had a whole team of prosecutors and FBI agents working alongside him. They talked to hundreds of witnesses and went through thousands of documents. In the end, Smith concluded that Trump committed multiple serious crimes. Take the election interference case, for example. It's really intense stuff. Smith found evidence of Trump's fake elector scheme, the pressure he put on state officials, how he tried to coerce Mike Pence, and even his role in the January 6th attack. All of this points to a criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruct an official proceeding. Then there's the case with classified documents. Trump took sensitive materials when he left the presidency. He didn't store them right and even showed them to people who didn't have clearance. When asked to return the documents, he didn't do it fully, and he's accused of trying to obstruct the investigation by telling his aides to hide or destroy evidence. That's all pretty serious criminal behavior. Smith didn't just throw around accusations. He gathered a lot of evidence and built cases he thought would lead to convictions. We didn't get to see those in court because Trump won the election, giving him presidential immunity. But what does that immunity really mean? The Supreme Court has said that while presidents have broad immunity for their official acts, it doesn't mean they're off the hook completely. They can't be criminally prosecuted while they're in office, but they can still be impeached. So, while Trump's immunity protects him from prosecution by the DOJ, it doesn't shield him from impeachment. And here's the thing, Smith's evidence is still out there, and Congress can use it even if Trump can't be charged criminally. They can review the evidence, hold hearings,